When we treat people like objects, we get objections. When we treat people like people, they have questions, they need reassurance, and that's our job. And what that oftentimes means is breaking the momentum of assumption, interrupting a pattern, and saying what needs to be said. And sometimes that thing that needs to be said is, that's not true. This really matters to you, but there's something in the way. Can you tell me what's in the way? What would need to be true in order for you to say yes to getting this product today and having me help you do that? Hello and welcome. This is Brian Delaney with Unlock Potential, where we get together with top experts in their field who have simple, profound advice to help you and I live better lives, to be able to be more fit to serve the people around us and answer that question, the question that nags within all of us: how good can I be and how great can I make it for people around me? Hello and welcome back to Unlock Potential. My name is Brian Delaney. Today we are going to be taking a little bit of a deeper dive into my conversation with Kevin Purdy to help you unlock more of the talent, more of your time, more of your energy to level up.
Early on, being in my 20s in sales, I always wanted you to feel, Brian, let's say you're in your 40s, 50s, 60s.
Yeah.
Like, if I didn't sell you, I wanted you to respect me. I wanted you turn to your wife and say, Tori, he was a fine young gentleman,
Yeah.
We didn't buy from him, but he's a good guy. He has good character and integrity. And I noticed that attitude held me back a lot.
Yeah.
Because I found myself not going for it, because I wanted you at the end of the sale or the end of the appointment to like me.
Yeah.
And so because I wanted you to like me, prevented me from not pushing, but, working along the obstacle a little bit longer to really help you and understanding that challenge. So if I'm walking away with, hey, I want to be a nice guy, being a nice guy is not going to help you.
Being a nice guy isn't going to help you. I love that. And I've found this to be exceptionally true because I've gone after being liked. And I ended up not liking myself. I've gone after, in sales environments, in work environments, even in friendships, trying to say the nice thing rather than the right thing. And it doesn't work. Like, a lot of times what we're taught is be nice and behave, and we're taught to predict other people's perceptions of us almost, and to be able to fall in line with what they want us to be. The people pleaser, the chameleon, whatever it is. And a lot of people use that language in sales, right? I can sell ice to Eskimos. I can be the chameleon. I can turn into whoever I want to be. And it's like, yeah, you may sell something to that person, but have you really made a client? Have you built a relationship? If the relationship is based on you predicting the things that you'll need to say to be accepted by that person, how are you ever going to be an impactful person in that relationship, whether it's personal or professional? And I was in the same boat as Kevin. I ran through that same thing. I would get there and I wouldn't make a sale. I'd be sitting down with somebody. I'd go through my whole presentation and they would be like, "You've done such a great job." And I was like, oh no, every time. I knew what was coming next. "You've done such a great job and you're such a nice young man. You're going to do really well at this, but we're going to need some more time to think about it. We need some more information that we're going to mull over." Any way you want to say we're not going to buy, that's what always followed. And I remember just sitting in appointment after appointment where I knew I could have helped that person. I could have helped them get what they actually need, not just what they said they needed, but what they actually needed. I could have helped them make a decision. I could have helped them get the product at an affordable price that would have worked for them. But I just didn't say the right things because I would rather be accepted by them and them not buy the product than rejected and not buy the product, right? Because either way, they weren't going to buy the product. They weren't going to buy what I had to offer. They weren't buying into me. And why weren't they buying into me? Because of the patterns that they had laid, because of the conversation that they had. And I needed to be able to be the type of person who interrupts patterns. And you know what nice guys don't do? Nice guys don't interrupt patterns. And that becomes a problem. So do we want to be nice or do we want to be good? Right? At the end of the day, nice is a fleeting feeling. Good is an experience. Good is an experience. So I want to create a good experience for people. Selling insurance as an example for what I've done. I've been in sales in life insurance now for 12 years. Before that, I was selling jobs for my construction business. Okay. When it came to life insurance, I had to get to the point where if they didn't buy and they needed it, we are not going to be okay. We are not going to be okay, because if I could see a need and I saw this person after having done a great job myself as the best I could, but they made a decision out of their own personal selfishness not to protect their family with a life insurance policy that they clearly needed based on the information that they went over, I wanted to let them know that we're not okay. My job is to help them get their family protected, not be liked. If I'm not friends with them, but their family's protected, my job just got done, right? If they don't think I did a good job, but their family got protected, I did a great job. I did what I needed to do. Now, here's the deal. Do you have to ruffle feathers to make sales? Do you have to ruffle feathers to be successful in business? Not always, but sometimes. Not always, but sometimes. And I had gone into house after house, and I remember that moment sitting out in my car after I had paid the tuition, and I paid the tuition through my missed sales and my missed commission. $500 per house that I could have sold. I was paying my commission. I was on my way to an Ivy League costing education in this business. And I finally slammed my hands down on the steering wheel and I said, enough is enough. I am not going to leave another person's home without saying exactly what needs to be said so that they know the truth of the situation, because I'm not in this for me first. I have to be able to deliver value to them first, and then my pay will be taken care of. I'm going to be good. I couldn't get that done as a nice guy, though. As a nice guy, I would say only what they accepted and what was acceptable. What was acceptable. I had to say the things that they expected me to say. But as a good person, what I had to do was care enough to confront them with the truth of their situation, whether they saw it or not, and learn how to build a supportive bridge that we could walk across together to get from the reality they had to the future that they wanted. And that was my job. And that's your job when you're in sales. That's your job when you're in business. Deliver value to the clients. Don't try to win a client's attitude. Try to win the client's business, and the attitude will follow as long as you've done the right things. 2 rules to make sure that happens and you actually win the client. Number 1, don't lie. You control what you say. I control what I say. I realized that I was saying things in the excitement to get the sale that I couldn't follow through on. I didn't know that at the time, but then I learned and all I had to do was say less. I had to make less promises. I had to not get wrapped up in that feeling of excitement from the emotion of having closed the sale, where I was just saying all these things that I was going to do. I was going to jump through hoops, and I was going to juggle flaming torches, and I was going to do all that while I was balancing on a ball. None of that stuff was going to happen. What was going to happen was I was going to go sit in the next appointment, and I was going to do my best to remember everybody who I had sat with and why that was important, and to follow up. And so I had to learn how to say less, but the things that I did say, I had to learn how to make sure that they were true, and I was going to follow through on them. The second one, don't be weird. When something needs to be said, just say it, because otherwise you're going to be weird, and it's going to get weird. And if you feel weird while you're out there making sales, so do your clients. The way we feel, we're connected somehow. I don't know. I'm not a theologian. I'm not a scientist. I don't know how we're all connected, but I know that my feelings are often a reflection of the people who I'm in the same room with. And that when I change my state, their state changes as well. And if I can get in charge of my state, that means I can help them get in charge of their state. And what that oftentimes means is breaking the momentum of assumption, interrupting a pattern, and saying what needs to be said. Saying what needs to be said. And sometimes that thing that needs to be said is, You know that's not true. You care more than that, don't you? This really matters to you, but there's something in the way. Can you tell me what's in the way? If it wasn't for price, would you make a buying decision today, or what would the other factors be? What's the road from here? What would need to be true in order for you to say yes to getting this product today and having me help you do that? Those are hard questions to ask. We tend to want to beat around the bush, and we tend to just throw options at the wall as if they were darts on a board. But these people aren't boards, they're people. When we treat people like objects, we get objections. When we treat people like people, they have questions, they need reassurance, and that's our job. And this is something that Kevin's talking about just right here. Is he's talking about how do you do this without creating this high pressure douchey environment? Because I think that's what we all have experienced, is this weird environment where you've kind of already made up your mind, but the salesperson isn't settled on that yet. And because they didn't do a good job leading up to it and setting you up for success, now you don't know what to do. So you just go with a different, a nicer variation of no. And so if you're in sales, understand that there's a big difference between a Sunday drive where I let someone know where we're going, when we're going, how we're going, where we're going, all of those things, and I let them know that, and I set them up, and then they decide to go along with me because, as a result of the setup. See, if we set people up properly, they're willing to go along with us. If we try to close people down, that's not a Sunday drive. That's a felony in most states. It's called kidnapping, okay? You can't kidnap your client. Don't kidnap your client. You got to let them know where you're going. The mistake that most people make, and that I made earlier on, I just wasn't brave enough to tell them exactly how things were going to go. I was allowing them to lead when I was the one who had the expertise, the domain expertise to offer here. And I was allowing them to do it. Listen, they didn't have the good or service before. If you don't do your job, they're not going to have it after. And if you let them lead, they're going to be disappointed because you didn't help them. So we can't let the client lead. Most people want to lead, but they need to be led. And it's the same thing for me. I don't want to go into a domain. I don't want to go into an arena. I don't want to look at products that I don't know about and make my own decision, because there's a lot of factors that are unknowns. I want an expert in this field. I don't want a sage from the stage. I want a guide by the side. I want somebody to say, hey, so what kind of sports do you watch? What are you typically watching on TV? Well, this TV, it's great for that, but it's not great for this thing over there. Do you play video games a lot? I wouldn't want to go out and buy a TV just by looking at one, because if you ask me what I want, I'm going to say I want the biggest, cheapest one. Is that really what I want? Probably not, because have you ever gone after the cheapest and got the best? If you could go through a McDonald's drive-thru and get a filet, would you? Right? Maybe a filet of fish if you're gross, right? But not a filet, right? So we don't really want to pay bottom dollar. We don't want to pay bottom dollar. But what we want to do is have an experience that's valuable with somebody who's credible to guide us. And whether you're brand new in sales or whether you're brand new in your environment, or you've been there, don't forget you're the one who's credible, not because of everything you know or what you can communicate so eloquently, but just simply because you're resourced. You're resourced in your environment. You do have some domain experience. You do have some particular knowledge. You probably even have an exceptional strength where you are, right? But more importantly, you have the resources. You have the ability to go find out what you don't know, and they don't. That's what they're coming to you for. So don't be afraid to say, hey, that's a really great question. I don't know that, but that is something I can find out. And so I'm going to find that out for you. What other questions do you have? What other questions do you have at this time? No other questions? Okay. So we can find that out. We can find that out right now. I can hop on the phone if you're able to hop on the phone, but just walk them through that process, show them how everything they think isn't a reason not to buy. It's actually a reason to buy. It's a reason to buy, and that's what people want to know. Otherwise, if you didn't need to do that, they wouldn't need you there, and you've just made yourself irrelevant if you're not willing to say what happened. So When it comes to not being in that place where you have to undo objections or really what it comes down to, they've already come to a conclusion and you're trying to back them off that cliff. And usually you end up going over that cliff with them because it's just like a bad conversation at that point. Don't worry about that. Just stop kidnapping your clients and start to take them on that Sunday drive where they want to go, right? So setup is everything. If you set it up, they're going to follow you, and just give them an opportunity to be led by being a leader.
When there's an issue, negativity, whatever it might be, I think a lot of times you're focusing on that. And, since this podcast, you mentioned about sales could be the same thing. You're constantly profiling, you're prejudging, and it could be always a lot of times unpleasant situations. People aren't excited to see you. They're frustrated. They're embarrassed. And so your job has to be like, what's the end result? In sales, my end result is I want to provide a service, a solution, and I want you to walk away from it happy, and I want to walk away happy. So a lot of times in leadership, there's an issue, but at the end of the day, I need to walk away feeling good about it. Is it easy to do? No.
Yeah.
But my personality is, I find myself saying a lot of times, "You having fun? We having fun?"
Yeah.
Maybe it's because I was raised as a only child.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was like, who's my tribe? Who's my friends?
Yeah.
If I'm a jerk today, can I call you up tomorrow, Brian? Or the old school, go knock on your door and say, "Hey, do you want to come out and ride bikes?"
Yeah.
So it's kind of working with people and understanding that human nature. And just from my experiences having bosses and mentors, it's how did I respond? Who are the ones that influenced me? And it was always those guys that could, recognize who I was, understand the problem, appreciate me, use that correction, that influence. And then when I walked out, I felt okay about it.
Yeah, I love what Kevin is saying in this clip because he's such a perfect example of it, and that is something that I continue to learn from him, and really a place that I admire him in is in his positive leadership style, right? Whether it's in sales, because it's all leadership, right? People say everything's in sales. I believe most of life is leadership, not sales, right? Sales is something you can do easily because it's just casting a vision and helping people fulfill it. But when it comes to leadership, it's so easy to fall into a rut. And it was so easy for me to fall into ruts early on where I would see a problem and I would focus on that problem because that problem is what made me necessary. Right. And it's kind of like you think that, early on in my business, if you looked at the way that I led, you would think that I was in the life-saving business, not the life insurance business, right? Because I would be focusing on those problems, solving the problem. And then as soon as the problem was solved, right, I was on to the next problem, on to the next problem, on to the next problem. Well, if you spend all your time solving problems, guess what you get more of? Get more problems. You get more problems to solve. If you spend all of your time equipping and empowering people and bringing joy, guess what you get more of? Equipped and empowered people who know how to bring joy, right? That was the deal. It's like I assume and I anticipate people are capable of doing what they need to do, and I am ready and anticipating my opportunity to show up into a big way to say, I trust you. What do you think is right? I want you to trust your gut. I want you to trust your intuition, because the last thing I want people to do is every time they have a problem, they have to call me because Brian's reliable. I want them to say, let me think about it. I'm reliable. My intuition is strong. My gut is trustworthy. I'm in a good spot. Let me think about this. Let me take 10 minutes of my time to see if I can sort this out before I call my coach, before I call my supervisor, before I do that, so that every time I get on the phone with that person, that supervisor, I can have 100x return. Because I took 10 minutes of my time for every 1 minute of their time that I'm asking for. I get 100x return every single time I get on there. And so when it comes to this leadership style, right, are people going to learn a lot when they're feeling bad about themselves? Absolutely not. So can you take care of the person before you take care of the problem? That's my journey, right? That's me teaching from the edge of my seat. I need to take care of the person before I take care of the problem, because the person is going to be left after the problem's already solved, right? And that person, are they going to be able to see solutions next time, or are they just seeing more need for more of me in their life, right? I'm not trying to create more need for more of me. I'm trying to create more space for more of them. Because if I can help them to create space to see where they can show up in their life, and I can, as Brendon Burchard talks about, if I can sow seeds of intention, then I can create spaces for transformation. If I can do that, then I can really help somebody. And those are the type of people who I want by my side anyway. But how I call them up is how they show up. If I don't call them up to a higher level when it comes to these problems and say, what do you think? What's your first thought? And as long as it's 60% as good as what you say it would be, you let them go. You say, good job. Sounds great. Trust your judgment. Awesome. How did you know that already? Like you haven't even studied that part. You haven't even learned that part of it. How'd you already know that? And they start to inherently trust themselves. And when somebody has an inherent trust of themselves, they have an inherent trust of their surroundings and the people around them. When they have an inherent distrust of themselves, they see themselves as a victim, and they naturally distrust the people and circumstances around them. What we want people to do is to think there is a huge conspiracy going on around them that is lined up for their good, well-being, and success, and all they have to do is step into it. And we are part of telling that story when it comes to leadership. What they've done all of the studies. There's not a single study that shows correction over pointed celebration is going to be better. When they watch tape, if two teams get an opportunity to watch tape, and it's a team where you show them the tape and show them everything that they did wrong, or you show them the tape of how they played and you show them everything that they did right, the team that's going to have the better performance is going to be the team where you showed them everything that they did right. They're going to do more of the right things. They're naturally, because they're doing more of the right things, they're going to do less of the wrong things, because now that space is filled, and they're going to be in a better place. It's the same thing in our personal lives. If I spend all my time correcting my son thinks he's a problem. If I spend all my time celebrating my son begins to believe that he's a solution to other problems. Are we creating solutions, or are we creating problems? See, I want to create people solutions rather than people problems. A leader's job is to multiply, right? See, I don't think that's a leader's job. I think that's what's going to happen with everyone. How intentional it is going to determine how big of an impact you have. But see, I think everybody multiplies. Have you ever seen somebody who's gone into a room with a negative attitude? Isn't it crazy how they multiply that negative attitude? You ever see somebody gossip about somebody and sow a thread of negativity? All of a sudden that thread becomes a fabric, right? And it replaces what was there before. So I think we always multiply. I think that the leader's job in multiplication is to do that intentional type of multiplication where you're multiplying things in other people. I heard it once said that when leadership is done right, the work will get done and the people will say, we did it. I think most bosses are concerned that people say they did it. Like if I've been appointed and I'm in that range, like people, I've said it in another video, I said, a lot of people think there's security in a job. Well, for every dollar over 100,000 you make, there's another person who's leaning up against your door who's willing to do twice as much for half as much. And there's the pressure on the company, especially if it's publicly traded, to get returns for their board members and their investors. And they're going to do that through layoffs. Guess who they're going to lay off? They're going to lay off 6 figures before they lay off 5 figures. Every single time. And what most people have to be focused on is keeping their job, not doing it. Is about keeping their reputation, not creating one. And I think it's just set up for failure. See, I don't want to be right. I want the relationship to be right. That's what matters. Because the relationship is the conduit for value. So if I am right, but it breaks the relationship, nobody's going to know about it. Did you ever notice how you're right, but the other person doesn't agree? It's because you broke the conduit. You broke the relationship. They won't agree with you because there was no pass-through of value, right? If you want somebody to like the fact that you're right, make them right. Make them right. Tell them how they can be right. Explain to them how a different way of seeing the situation, but hear them out first. Leaders think that it's their job to go first in all situations. It's our job to go first when there's uncertainty. It's our job to go last when there is certainty. Because if somebody can go out in front of us and do it and we can celebrate them, that's an awesome thing. If somebody can go out first and we can say, you did it, that's an amazing thing. If you're always needed because you're always the one going first, but you don't know what's going on, you've got a serious problem on your hands because people will start to question you. I was watching Erwin McManus's podcast this past week. Another one of the incredible thought leaders that I get to plug into and just get to learn and grow from. He said, I'm not trying to win the war, I'm trying to win the person. I'm trying to win the person. And when did it become easier to get a job done around people than with people? If we're a true leader, we're going to understand that leverage equals multiplication and geometric progression, that we get to work not around people, but through people and with people, and that we together can get done more than any one of us can get done alone. And how does that start? Don't start by trying to learn how to lead a bunch of people. Learn how to have a conversation with somebody else where you can have some influence in how they see things, and learn how to be influenced by others as well. Greatest coaches are the ones who took coaching well. Most of the time, a lot of the time, they became the greatest coaches. They're not always the best players, right? Coaches aren't always the best players because they never had to learn step by step how to do something. But they're the ones who accepted coaching. They learned it from somebody else. They adopted it. They figured out what works. Be in that position where you're coaching someone else to be able to think, hey, you have that 90% right, but there's a real opportunity, if you think about it this way, to step into a whole different existence, a whole different relationship, a whole different perspective that's available to you right now, just with one step in that direction. And you're the type of person who you're not going to take a step. I know you. You're going to jump in with both feet, and you're going to nail this. You're going to kill this. This is going to be awesome. This is going to be it. They're going to come back to you and say, thank you so much for helping me to do that. I got to look like a rock star at home. Say, you're welcome, and you are a rock star. That's why you look like a rock star. Always accept the compliment, and that's a hard thing for me. Always accept a compliment. If you teach people to reject compliments, they'll start to reject compliments. Teach your people how to celebrate, they'll know what's important, right? And so accept the compliment and tell that person who they are. They are a rock star. You are a problem solver. You get stuff done. I knew you were going to have that handled. That was awesome. Right? You start to use words like that around the people, you'll never be worried about job security because the people you push up will be pushing you up to the next level. Thank you all for joining our conversations. We're developing this platform for simple, profound tools and techniques that can help you get the best out of your life and, more importantly, unlock potential. You can find me across all social platforms at The Brian Delaney, and online, come visit us at thebriandelaney.com.